It's now on Channel 4, the Bake Off. He's a well-known guy. This was before Bake Off started, of course, but here he is wearing a Nazi outfit in a pub, clearly going out to some sort of a do later on in the day. We turn to the story. Further inside, drinkers at a village pub looked on aghast as Paul Hollywood entered dressed as a Nazi and made fun of it. Now, if there's one thing, if you have a public profile, if you're a celebrity, if you are known, if people take your picture, why would you do something like this? Let's take the view of Jonathan Sacerdoti. He's a Jewish journalist and he's a campaigner against anti-Semitism. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is always one of these things, isn't it, that is contentious. It is controversial. Let me take your first impressions of the picture and the outfit that he is wearing. How offensive is this?
Good morning. I would say, obviously, it is quite a shocking image, and I would take a little bit further what you just said, which is obviously somebody who's in the public eye, like Paul Hollywood, shouldn't be dressing up as a Nazi like this. But I would say that it's quite a peculiar choice for anyone, public eye or not. I don't know anyone that would want to dress up in full Nazi regalia and go out for a party, pose for photos, smiling like that. I'm not suggesting the man has sympathies with Nazis at all. We don't know that. But I am saying that it's a very strange choice for an outfit to wear out in public or in home in private when we know what the Nazis did. We know what the Nazis did in Europe. We know what the Nazis did specifically to Jewish people. Over 6 million Jewish people systematically killed in an attempt to wipe out the Jewish race in Europe. So I think it's a very strange choice of outfit.
Fancy dress is there to shock, isn't it? And it's there to make an impression. And perhaps joke is the wrong word, but it is fancy dress. So do we have to maintain a sense of proportion in our reaction to this?
Of course, a sense of proportion is important in our reaction to everything, and I'm certainly not the fancy dress police. I just know that I would find it a very strange choice. It's not something I'd ever consider. I doubt it's something you'd ever consider. Like I said, I don't know many people who would consider that as a fancy dress outfit for a light-hearted party. And the photo, whilst being somewhat historic, shows a man relatively recently who is well known in a public place, a pub of all places, smiling quite happily, dressed like that. It just feels very wrong. And I'm sure there are people today who can remember the war period who will find that very shocking, especially as Britain fought Nazism so bravely. There'll be Jewish people who are survivors of the Holocaust who also will look at that and feel very uncomfortable. In general, it's bad taste. I don't necessarily want to overreact at all. I'm not saying there should be any kind of repercussion in terms of his job or anything like that. What happens next is for him to decide, I suppose. Maybe he has an explanation of why his judgment was so bad back then. I don't want to be that person that's screaming and calling for censure, but I do think that it's a peculiar story. It's popped up in the Sun today. Somebody sold them that photo, clearly, made a bit of money on it. But it's a very distressing choice of outfit, and it will upset lots of people, quite rightly.
Measured words from Jonathan Sacerdoti. Thank you for your time this morning. He's a Jewish journalist. He's a campaigner against